The life you're living on autopilot. Most people believe they are consciously living their lives. They believe they are making decisions, choosing their priorities, and actively shaping their future. They assume their habits are intentional, their routines are deliberate, their goals are meaningful, their daily actions reflect what they truly want. But if that were completely true, many people would not feel the way they do. They would not wake up wondering where the years went. They would not feel disconnected from their own lives. They would not achieve goals only to discover the achievement feels strangely empty. They would not spend so much time moving while feeling as though they are standing still. The uncomfortable reality is that many people are not fully directing their lives. They are repeating them. They are following routines they rarely question, chasing goals they inherited, responding to patterns they never consciously chose. Entire years can pass this way. The body keeps moving. The schedule stays full. The responsibilities get handled. Yet somewhere underneath all the activity, a person quietly begins wondering whether they are actually living or simply continuing. Because autopilot does not feel like being lost. Autopilot feels normal. That is why it can continue for years before someone notices. The brain loves automation. The human brain is constantly looking for ways to conserve energy. If every decision required full conscious attention, daily life would become exhausting. To solve this problem, the brain turns repeated behaviors into automatic patterns. Habits form. Routines develop. Familiar actions require less effort. What once demanded attention eventually happens without much thought at all. This ability is incredibly useful. It allows people to drive familiar routes, complete routine tasks, and navigate everyday life efficiently. The problem begins when automation expands beyond simple behaviors and starts influencing entire lifestyles. People stop questioning routines because routines become familiar. They stop evaluating choices because those choices become habits. Eventually, the brain starts treating repetition as evidence that something should continue. The longer a pattern exists, the more invisible it becomes. People assume they are choosing their lives when often they are simply repeating yesterday. People inherit more than they realize. One of the most powerful aspects of autopilot living is that many of the things people pursue were never consciously chosen. Ideas about success, relationships, achievement, productivity, and happiness are often inherited long before they are examined. Family, culture, education, social media, and peer groups all contribute to shaping what people believe they should want. The problem is that inherited goals can feel identical to authentic goals. A person may spend years chasing something without ever asking where the desire originated. They pursue the promotion because success is expected. They follow the path because everyone around them follows it. They adopt priorities because those priorities appear normal. The danger is not that these goals are necessarily wrong. The danger is pursuing them without awareness. People can spend enormous amounts of energy building a life they never consciously selected. Then one day they arrive where they were trying to go and discover they do not actually want to be there. Familiar does not always mean right. People are strongly influenced by familiarity. The brain tends to trust what it recognizes. Familiar routines feel safe. Familiar behaviors feel comfortable. Familiar environments feel predictable. Because of this, people often continue doing things simply because they have always done them. The issue is that familiarity and alignment are not the same thing. A pattern can be familiar and unhealthy. A routine can be familiar and limiting. A lifestyle can be familiar and deeply unfulfilling. Yet people rarely question these things because questioning them creates uncertainty. It requires stepping outside what is known. Many individuals remain inside patterns that no longer serve them because the discomfort of change feels greater than the discomfort of staying the same. The result is a life that becomes increasingly automatic. People continue following old directions long after they have forgotten why they started walking that way in the first place. Busyness can hide disconnection. One of the reasons autopilot is difficult to recognize is because activity creates the illusion of progress. People assume that movement means growth. They assume that being busy means they are moving forward. Their schedules remain full. Their responsibilities continue. Their days stay occupied. But activity and awareness are not the same thing. A person can be incredibly busy while remaining disconnected from what actually matters to them. In fact, busyness often prevents reflection. Constant activity leaves little room for questioning. There is always another task, another obligation, another distraction demanding attention. Over time, people become so focused on managing life that they stop examining it. They become experts at functioning while gradually losing touch with why they are functioning the way they are. The schedule remains full, but the sense of meaning slowly fades. Awake people ask different questions. One of the biggest differences between people living consciously and people living on autopilot is the questions they ask themselves. People on autopilot tend to focus on maintaining momentum. They ask, what needs to be done next? What problem needs solving? What obligation requires attention? Awake people eventually begin asking different questions. Why am I doing this? Do I actually want this? Is this still important to me? Am I moving towards something meaningful or simply continuing a pattern? These questions can feel uncomfortable because they disrupt automatic behavior. They force awareness into places that routine has kept hidden. Yet those questions are often the beginning of meaningful change. Awareness starts the moment people become willing to examine what they have been unconsciously repeating. Small decisions create entire lives. Most people imagine life-changing moments as dramatic events. They picture major decisions, huge opportunities, or sudden breakthroughs. In reality, entire lives are often shaped by small choices repeated consistently over time. The way people spend their mornings, the conversations they avoid, the habits they reinforce, the things they tolerate, the goals they postpone, the distractions they prioritize. None of these decisions seem particularly significant on a given day. Yet together they create direction. This is why autopilot can be so powerful. It rarely appears dramatic. It operates quietly through repetition. The person does not wake up one morning and suddenly become disconnected from their life. The disconnection develops gradually through thousands of small moments that go unquestioned. Eventually, the accumulation becomes visible, but by then, years may have passed. Awareness interrupts the pattern. The good news is that autopilot loses power the moment it becomes visible. Patterns can only operate automatically when they remain unconscious. Once awareness enters the picture, choices become available again. People begin noticing habits instead of blindly following them. They start questioning assumptions instead of accepting them automatically. This does not mean every part of life needs to change. In fact, many routines may still be useful. The goal is not rejecting structure. The goal is reclaiming authorship. The difference is that conscious people choose their patterns, while unconscious people are controlled by them. Awareness creates space between stimulus and response. It creates room for intentionality. Instead of automatically continuing yesterday, people gain the opportunity to consciously decide what deserves to continue and what no longer does. The life you want requires your attention. One of the most uncomfortable realizations a person can have is recognizing how much of life has been lived automatically. The routines felt normal. The goals felt obvious. The habits felt harmless. Yet somewhere along the way, awareness faded and repetition took over. The truth is that most people do not become trapped by dramatic mistakes. They become trapped by unconscious repetition. They continue following paths they never questioned. They continue chasing goals they never examined. They continue living according to patterns they inherited rather than consciously chose. The danger of autopilot is not that it makes life difficult. The danger is that it can make life pass quickly. Years disappear. Opportunities disappear. Entire chapters disappear while a person remains busy repeating what is familiar. The purpose of awareness is not perfection, it is participation. It is becoming present enough to notice the life you are actually living, instead of the life you assume you are living. Because the moment you begin questioning what has become automatic is often the moment you begin taking your life back. And the life you truly want can only be built consciously. It cannot be built on autopilot. Thank you for watching. This is MindStickz.